Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. By the title of this video, you already know that today I want to talk about some books that I'm looking forward to reading in the fall season, as well as some book recommendations that I want to provide to you. So with that being said, I literally have a total of 17 books I want to talk about. So go ahead and grab yourself a snack, something to drink. I have my chai tea with me. Get yourself nice and comfortable and cozy because it is going to be a long video today. So I want to start this video off with recommending some of the books that I read last year that aren't necessarily really heavy on fall themes, but they do happen around the fall season. Unfortunately, last year, even though I was so up for reading a bunch of fall themed books, I didn't really get a chance to. I did read a couple, which I'm going to recommend to you, but I didn't read a lot. Those that I did read did give me the fall experience, did give me the fall vibes, whether because it was set in the colder times of the year, or rather it was set during November, or because the vibes of it and the atmosphere of it gave me those fall feelings. These books I've given nothing but 4 to 5 stars. These are some of the books that I would highly recommend that you read this year. The first book that I want to recommend to you would be November 9th by Colleen Hoover, and obviously I'm recommending this to you because not only do I love Colleen Hoover as an author, but it does fall on November 9th. Now it doesn't really have heavy fall themes, but it is set in November, and so I feel like it's accurate to be reading it during this season. I'm gonna read you the back of this, and I want you to just have an open mind and basically just go in blind with this book, because that's how I went in blind, and I was extremely glad I did because I absolutely fell in love with these characters and I fell in love with this romance. So if you didn't know what this book is about, this book follows Fallen and Ben. It is their romance, but the way that it's written, it feels like more of a tragic love story, but it was so good. Fallen meets Ben, an inspiring novelist, the day before her scheduled cross-country move. Their untimely attraction leads them to spend Fallen's last day in LA together, and her eventful life becomes the creative inspiration Ben has always sought for his novel. Over time, and amidst the various relationships and tribulations of their own separate lives, they continue to meet on the same date every year, until one day Fallen becomes unsure if Ben is telling her the truth or fabricating a perfect reality for the sake of the ultimate plot twist. Can Ben's relationship with Fallen and simultaneously his novel be considered a love story if it ends in heartbreak? And that's all I'm gonna say. This is a heartbreaking romance book, like all of Colleen Hoover books are, but it's so good, it's so impactful, it's so special because every year they meet on November 9th. I also love the fact that he's an inspiring novelist. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. Next book that I want to recommend is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poster. Let me just tell you, this book, if it doesn't scream fall, I don't know what does, and it is exactly that. This is the most atmospheric, fallish vibed book, if that makes any sense, that I read last year, and I absolutely loved it. Before I get into this book, I just want to talk about how compelling and how good Ashley Poster's writing is. It's one of those books that is so memorable just because of her writing itself. It's not very flowery, but it's beautiful. It's beautifully written, and not a lot happens, but enough to keep you glued onto the pages, if that makes sense. Romance is dead, but this isn't what she had in mind. Florence Day is the ghostwriter for one of the most prolific romance authors in the industry, and she has a problem. After a terrible breakup, she no longer believes in love. It's as good as dead. When her new editor and too handsome mountain of a man won't give her an extension on her book deadline, Florence prepares to kiss her career goodbye, but then she gets a phone call she never wanted to receive, and she must return home for the first time in a decade to help her family bury her beloved father. For 10 years, she's run from the town that never understood her, and even though she misses the sounds of a warm southern night and her eccentric, loving family with her funeral parlor, she can't bring herself to stay. Her father's gone, yet everything else feels the same, and she hates it, until she finds a ghost standing at the funeral parlor's front door, just as broad and infuriatingly handsome as ever, and he's just as confused about why he's there as she is. Romance is most certainly dead, but so is her new editor, and his unfinished business will have her second-guessing everything she's ever known about love stories. How can you not want to read that? This book is so good. It's got the fallish vibes. She's a ghostwriter. You know, she writes for a famous romance author. Her editor is a grumpy guy. There's also some paranormal elements in there. She finds out that her editor is dead, and she is able to see ghosts as well. This is all the fall vibes you need and much more packed in one book. And the way that Ashley Poster wrote this book was so beautiful. Next book I like to recommend is a book that I I just recently finished for this month, and I loved it so much I gave it a 5-star. And that's no other than The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. Yes, okay, yes, this book is a chunky one, but it's so worth it. And if you're not aware of Mariana Zapata, she is the queen of slow burns, meaning you don't really get to see the characters be together or kiss or anything like that until the end of the book, but this is so worth it. This story follows Aiden and Vanessa. Aiden happens to be a national football player, so that's where I feel like I'm getting the fall vibes here because it's during the football season. Also, there's Thanksgiving. There's a lot going on in this book. Vanessa has worked as Aiden's personal assistant for the last 2 years, and she is so fed up with him because he's very grumpy. He's a man of few words. Vanessa feels like he doesn't really appreciate her. He never says thank you. He never says good morning. One day she's fed up and she quits on him. A couple weeks later, he shows up at her doorstep, making her a proposition that she cannot refuse. And the story goes from there. This is a slow burn romance. This book is so good. I feel like anybody and everybody should read it. The next book I want to recommend to you guys is another book by Mariana Zapata, but again, it falls around the fall season, which is why I want to recommend it to you, and that is All Roads Lead Here. This one is a small town romance about a woman who up and moves and just wants to have a fresh start because she has gone through some things. She decides that she needs to go back to her small town in Colorado, I believe it is, and start fresh. She literally answers an ad on the internet providing cheaper rent, so she jumps on it. But luckily does she know that the landlord has no idea that his spare apartment was offered up to rent. So I'm not going to really say a lot more about this book because I just want you to go in it blind, but it is a small town romance and it's such a good book. It definitely gives you the fall vibes. And the back is just as vague. Losing people you love is hard. Aurora de la Torre knows moving back to a place that was once home isn't going to be easy. Starting your whole life over probably isn't supposed to be. But a small town in the mountains might be the perfect remedy for a broken heart. I feel like any romance that revolves around small towns always gives me the fall vibes that I'm looking for. It's not heavily themed around the fall, but it does occur during those months. Next book I want to recommend is a historical fiction. It's actually way different than any of these other books that I've talked to you guys about, but I want to recommend it because the setting of the book is all year round and it transitions from fall to winter. I feel like it gave me fallish vibes. That's no other than The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. Now, if you know Kristen Hanna's books, they're very impactful, they're very emotional, they're very tragic, but the way that she writes her books are so beautiful and not a lot goes on. At least my experience with this one, not a lot went on, but it was such an impactful read, such a beautiful read. I couldn't help but to keep reading, and I did annotate a lot of this book because it was so well written. Alaska, 1974. The Albrights are a family in crisis. They are alone, living off the grid in a harsh and unforgiving wilderness. Ernst Albright has come home from the Vietnam War. A changed and volatile man has made the impulsive decision to move his wife and daughter north to America's last true frontier. Cora Albright will do anything for the man she loves, even if it means following him into the unknown. 13-year-old Lenny, caught in the riptide of her parents' passionate, stormy relationship, has little choice but to go along, daring to hope this new land promises her family a better future. Even though they have found a small independent community of strong men and even stronger women, winter is approaching, darkness is descending, and Ernst's fragile mental state is deteriorating. Soon the perils outside pale in comparison to threats from within. In their small cabin covered in snow, blanketed in 18 hours of night, Lenny and her mother learned the terrible truth. They are on their own in the wild. There is no one to save them but themselves. This sweeping, unforgettable portrait of human frailty and resilience spans the decades in a place of uncomparable beauty and danger, where a family learns the truth about the wilderness that lives in both man and nature. This was such a heartbreaking story. It was so impactful though. It was beautifully written. It was emotional. They live off the grid. I feel like that gives you fall vibes. They live off the grid. It's set all year round, so you get to see all the seasons of the year, and it was just such a good book. I highly recommend it. It made me cry. It made me root for these characters. My heart broke at times. It was hard to read, so search up trigger warnings because there are a few in here, but it was such a good book, a great impactful book. And the last book that I recommend to you guys that I read last year and I gave a 5-star to, it was my first magical realism book and I loved it so much, and that is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This book was so good. It's got the woods atmosphere. It's set in a small town. town on an island. It just gives me the fall vibes. There's a hint of magic. It's about witches. It's also beautifully written as well. It feels more lyrical. The descriptions are so beautiful. I loved it. Emery Blackwood's life changed forever the night her best friend was found dead and the love of her life, August Salt, was accused of murdering her. Years later, she's doing what her teenage self swore she never would, living a quiet existence on the misty, remote shores of Souris Island and running the family's business, Blackwood's tea shop, herbal tonics, and tea leaf readings. But when the island, rooted in folklore and magic, begins to show signs of strange happenings, Emery knows that something is coming. The morning she wakes to find that every single tree on the island has turned color in a single night. August returns for the first time in 14 years and unearths the past that the town has tried desperately to forget. August knows he has no welcome on the island, not after the night everything changed. As a fire raged on the Salt family orchard, Lily Morgan was found dead in the dark woods, shaking the bedrock of their tight-knit community and branding August a murderer. When he returns to bury his mother's ashes, he must confront the people who turned their backs on him and face the one wound from his past that has never healed, Emery. But the town has more than one reason to want August gone, and the emergence of hidden promises and deep betrayal spanning generations threatens to reveal the truth behind Lily's mysterious death once and for all. Not only does it have a little bit of romance in there, but it's a small, eerie island. There's subtle witches, there's magic involved. There's a murder to solve. It's just such a good book because the main character, Emery, is torn between listening to her people that have banned the love of her life because they believe he murdered her friend, or stand by him. There's just so many themes going on in this book, which again give me that fall vibe that I'm looking for. It's a little bit witchy. There's a little bit of magic in there. It's set in an eerie island, the small community. And then you can't help but to question, do I believe August? Did he not murder my friend, or do I believe the townspeople? So there's a lot of things to unravel in this book, and I had so much fun reading it. Okay, so the next books that I would like to talk about are the books that I purchased last year that I really wanted to read during the fall, but I didn't quite get to them. Some of these are very heavily themed around the fall. Some of them occur around that time frame, and some of them just give me the fall vibes, even if they are not necessarily fall themed. So the first book that I can't wait to get to, and this probably might be on my September TBR, is Accidental Amy by Lynn Painter. First of all, I love Lynn Painter. I love her books. I love her writing. And this one's very interesting because I heard this one first started off as an article and then they wanted to make it into a book. So she did. And it's a short, sweet little book, only 238 pages. It is so cute, definitely fall themed, and I can't wait to read it. It started with a cup. Isabel Shea is usually a very honest person, but when she's running late for her first day at a dream job and the barista yells for Amy 3 times with no answer, she does the unthinkable. Izzy takes that pumpkin spice latte. It's the exact drink she ordered and paid for, only way further ahead in the line. So she mutters, "I am Amy," and grabs the cup. But when she turns around and runs directly into the most attractive man she's ever seen, spilling the drink all over his GQ shirt and tie, she ends up having the ultimate meet cute. Sparks fly and feelings feel beyond promising until he sees the words, "See you tomorrow, Amy." Uh-oh, she'll definitely have to straighten him out the following day. Only when she gets to her new office and meets the VP of her department. It is none other than Blake Phillips, the hottie from Starbucks. And the man might have been charming to Amy, but he is an arrogant grump to Izzy. An arrogant grump who does not find her explanation funny at all. This is meet cute, grumpy sunshine, friends to lovers, accidentally. I mean, it has everything in it. How beautiful is this cover? It sounds so fun. I can't wait to get to it. The next book I would like to get to is Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. Look at this cover, guys. Look how fall-ish it looks. I can't wait to read this. It says, when falling in love is the punchline. Farley Jones is being forced to date Mayor Harrigan, the man she has come to love, in order to make all of her stand-up dreams come true. It's agony, it's tragedy even. In lieu of flowers, please send cash. Mayor and his daughter Hazel have been everything to Farley since they came into her life 3 years ago. So all joking aside, the stakes are high when it's not only her career but both of those relationships on the line. A former stand-up star himself, Mayor has been vital to the trajectory of her career since he began managing her, since he became her closest and most treasured friend in the process. This friendship is the only reason why, when the biggest opportunity of Farley's career includes thrusting him back into the spotlight to stir up publicity, he agrees in the spite of his grumpiness, his protectiveness over Hazel, and his disdain for public attention. It doesn't take long for their act to bring all those other funny feelings out and into the open, and like most matters of the heart, it quickly begins to feel like anything but a joke. Funny Feelings is a swoony story about friendship, love, and looking for the laugh in life. It touches on the creative spirit and all that comes with sharing that gift, and how oftentimes the comedians in our lives are the most sensitive or struggling. It features two friends, one incredible little girl, and a kaleidoscope of feelings along the way. Doesn't that sound so fun and interesting? And also sounds like it might be a little bit emotional maybe. I don't know, but I can't wait to read it. The next book I want to read this fall is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poster, which is why I recommended The Dead Romantics, because I love her writing so much. A gorgeous love story from the finest romance writers out there. Sometimes the worst day of your life happens and you have to figure out how to live after it. For Clementine West, that means burying her head in her work as a book publicist, being practical, and forgetting the silly things her beloved aunt Anna Lee taught her, like living wide and chasing the room. Clementine would rather stay grounded and keep her heart safe. For the last 6 months, she's done just that. But when she moves into her late aunt's apartment and finds a strange man standing in the kitchen, a man with kind eyes, a southern drawl, and a taste for lemon pies, her well-laid plans begin to fall apart, because he's the type of man who, before it all, she would have fallen head over heels for, and she still might. Except he exists in the past. 7 years in the past to be exact, and she quite literally lives 7 years in the future. How interesting is that? He's in the past, she's in the present, but yet he's in her apartment. That is so interesting. And look at this. Look at these fallish vibes it's giving you. I can't wait to read it. The next book I want to read is a small town romance, and that is The City Baker's Guide to Country Living by Louise Miller. The little blurb says, super cozy, it's Gilmore Girls, bon appetit. How cute is that? Look at the cover. Isn't that so cute? When Olivia Rollins, pastry chef extraordinaire from an exclusive Boston dinner club, sets not just her flambé dessert but the entire building alight, she escapes to the idyllic town of Gauthier, Vermont. But the getaway turns into something more lasting when Margaret Hurley, the owner of the Sugar Maple Inn, offers Levy a job. With the joys of a fragrant kitchen and the crisp scent of the orchard just outside the front door, Levy soon finds herself whipping up her mouth-watering desserts for the locals, and along with her gigantic dog Salty, making friends all over town. When she meets Martin McCracken, Levy comes to understand that she may not be as alone in this world as she once thought. How fun is that? She's a pastry chef. It's a small town romance. She's offered a job at a small cozy inn. Huge fall vibes here. I can't wait to read this one. Next up, I've actually never heard anyone talk about this book, but the cover just gave me fall vibes, and it's a small town romance, and I really love this author, and that is Fall into Temptation by Lucy Score. I mean, look at that. Doesn't that scream fall? And it says a blue moon romantic comedy, even though this does not scream rom-com, but hey, I'm not judging a book by its cover. Beckett Pierce is the most eligible bachelor in the noisiest small town in upstate New York, but after his last girlfriend handcuffed herself to his porch and set his welcome mat on fire, he's not looking for any more romance, especially if it lands right into his own backyard and has miles of red hair. Gianna Decker has her hands full, no overflowing with problems. With 2 kids, a useless ex, and a brand new yoga studio, the last thing on her mind is finding a man who'll demand more of her time. Fantasizing about her hot roadie landlord, mistake. Lusting after the sexy mayor of her new town, terrible idea. Getting naked with the favorite son of her father's new lady friend, N.O. Getting involved with Beckett has disaster written all over it. Those stolen kisses were accidental. A few moments of strings-free, sizzling passion couldn't possibly cause any trouble. At least not until tempers flare, when their families complicate things and the interfering citizens of Blue Moon step in with their special brand of chaos. How fun does that sound? Small town romance. It looks like it's a tight-knit community. I love reading books like this. The next one, I don't necessarily think it's very heavy on fall, but it does happen around school time. To me, it gives me fall vibes, and that's You But Better by Christine Riccio, I think. I don't know how to say her name. The story of finding love, finding yourself. Shane has been doing college all wrong. Pre-med, stellar grades, and happy parents. Sounds ideal, but Shane's made 0 friends, goes home every weekend, and romance, what's that? Her life has been dorm, dining hall, class, repeat. Time's a ticking and she needs to change. There's nothing like moving to a new country to really mix things up. Shane signs up for a semester abroad in London. Ooh. She's going to write all her college mistakes, make friends, pursue boys, and find adventure. Easier said than done. She is soon faced with the complicated realities of living outside her bubble, and when self-doubt sneaks in, her new life starts to fall apart. Shane comes to find that with the right amount of courage and determination, one can conquer anything. Throw in some fate and a touch of magic, the possibilities are endless. A heartfelt story about second chances, discovering yourself, and being brave enough to try again. So I think this is a new adult or young adult fiction book. I don't even think it's necessarily romance. I don't know. But there's some magical themes in there. Maybe she is living a different lifetime because it says, what would you do with a second chance? And maybe during that lifetime, she changes the course of her life. I don't know, but it sounds so good. I can't wait to read it. The next book is a bully romance, but again, it's like academic. So to me, that screams fall. It just gives me such fall vibes when it's set in a school, in a prestigious school. And that is A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. I mean, look how beautiful this cover is. And it is a chunky book, but I just love the way it feels. At Lancaster Prep, the girls love her. They all want to be her friend, only I see Ren for who she really is. A repressed little virgin who keeps her feelings locked up so tight. She's probably close to bursting. She thinks she's above us all, even me. I shouldn't be drawn to her. She's not my type. Until we're forced to work together in class and realize we might have more things in common than we originally thought. Soon enough, I find myself completely obsessed. I will do anything for this girl to make her fall in love with me. Anything. I mean, if that doesn't compel you to read it, I don't know what will, because I am so intrigued. I can't wait to find out if bully romances are my thing or not. So we're down to our last 4 books, and I'm super excited to share these with you because these to me look and scream fall. The first one is a cozy mystery that I can't wait to get to, and it's also set in a bookstore. To me, in this fall season, nothing's better than to read a cozy mystery set in a bookstore. What more can you ask for? And it's Murder by the Book by Lauren Elliott. Look how cute this cover is. Doesn't that scream fall to you? Like, I know I said that about every other book, but like, look at this. Addie left some painful memories behind in the big city, including the unsolved murder of her fiance and her father's fatal car accident. After an unexpected inheritance from a great aunt, she's moved to a small New England town founded by her ancestors back in colonial times and living in spacious Greybourne Manor on a hilltop overlooking the harbor. Best of all, her aunt also left her countless first editions and other treasures, providing an inventory to start her own store. But there's trouble from day one, and not just from the grumpy woman who runs the bakery next door. A car nearly runs Addie down. Someone steals a copy of Alice in Wonderland. Then Addie's friend Serena, who owns a nearby tea shop, is arrested for killing another local merchant. The police seem pretty sure they've got the story in hand, but Addie's not going to let them close the book in this case without a fight. Oh my gosh, how interesting and how fun does that sound? I can't wait to read it. Next up, I am super excited for this book. It's definitely out of my comfort zone, but I've heard nothing but great things, so I put it on my fall TBR, which is Legends and Latte by Travis Baldrier. Look how cute this cover is. After a lifetime of bounties and bloodshed, Viv is hanging up her sword for the last time. The battle-weary orc aims to start fresh, opening the first ever coffee shop in the city of Thun. But rivals old and new stand in the way of success. Not to mention the fact that no one has the faintest idea what a coffee actually is. If Viv wants to put the blade behind her and make her own plans a reality, she won't be able to go it alone. But the true rewards of the uncharted path are the travelers you meet along the way, and rather drawn together by ancient magic or flaky pastries or a freshly brewed coffee, they may become partners, family, and something deeper than she ever could have imagined. So this gives me so many fall vibes. I believe it might be a romance between them two. Viv is the orc owner of this coffee shop that she has no idea how to run because she's probably never had coffee before. It's also a bakery, so I know there's a lot of descriptions in here about the food that they make, and I think there's also a cute little mouse as well. I just can't wait to read this book this fall. Like, look how cute that is. I can't wait. The next book is a magical realism. I heard it makes people cry. I've heard it's very impactful. It's a short little book, but it's got a lot of emotions packed in it, and that is no other than Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Tsukazu Kawaguchi. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering the name. And I feel like this is a magical coffee shop, which is why I added it in here, because that gives me such fall vibes. Every now and then a customer like Gotaro would come to the cafe after hearing the rumor that you could travel back in time. Are you familiar with the rules? Kazu asked briefly. There were customers who rolled up at the cafe with no idea of them. More or less, Kayuku shouted. Kotaro shrugged apologetically. You sit in a chair, someone makes you a coffee, and you return to the past. That's all I've heard. Isn't that so compelling? Isn't that so interesting? I definitely want to get to it this season. I can't wait to read it. The last book that I really want to get to this fall is themed around a bookstore, which to me is super interesting and it gives me the total fall vibe that I'm looking for. I think this one is a fiction, maybe magical realism as well, and that is Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. And I mean, the cover doesn't really scream anything, but the concept of it makes me feel like it should be read this fall. The Great Recession has shuffled Clay Janin away from life as the San Francisco web design drone and into the aisles of Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore. But after a few days on the job, Clay discovers that the store is more curious than either its name or its owner might suggest. The customers are few and they never seem to buy anything. Instead, they check out large, obscure volumes from the strange corners of the store. Suspicious, Clay engineers an analysis of the clientele's behaviors, seeking help from his variously talented friends. But when they bring their findings to Mr. Penumbra, they discover the bookstore's secrets extend far beyond its walls. Rendered with irresistible brio and dazzling intelligence, Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore is exactly what it sounds like, an establishment you have to enter and you'll never want to leave. How interesting is that? There's mystery involved, maybe some magical realism. I love that it's set at a bookstore. I just can't wait to read it. All right, guys, so there you have it. Those are some of my recommendations I have for you, and those are all the books that I really do want to get to in this fall season. Will I get to all of those? I don't know, because there's gonna be other books that are gonna be released as well that I'm probably gonna purchase and I'm gonna add on to my TBR. I'm being hopeful that I'll get through these this season because these are books from last year that I really wanted to get to, but I didn't have the chance to. So thank you again so much for watching my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you again on my next one. Bye!